I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, but since I've got into listening to a lot of podcasts, my desire for reading and music has almost disappeared. It's a strange thing. I've got some books over there waiting to be read, and there's always music I want to listen to. And for some reason, whenever I feel like reading or listening to music or just getting into something, I keep turning to podcasts and ignoring the other two. And I don't really know why, though I've got some notes that maybe explain it a bit better. What I listen to is history podcasts largely, and I really enjoy them. And they're intelligent, knowledgeable people, telling wonderful tales of history, ancient and modern. And I just find it kind of relaxing to listen to, but also it's good to fill in holes of your own understanding. Now, if anyone knows me, I'm the sort of person that can listen to something like that, enjoy it, understand it, and then 5 minutes later, if you ask me a question, it's all gone. But in reality, it's in there somewhere. It comes up at different times. I think it's a bit like, you can forget something you did yesterday, but can sing the lyrics of songs from the 1970s perfectly. So it's in there somewhere, and I just trust that. You have to trust that. And I enjoy it. But when I think about listening to music or picking up a book to read, especially, I don't know, somehow the desire is not there. And that worries me a little bit. So what I've done is I've stopped with the podcasts as of today, and I'm going to get back into reading and music, especially reading I'm worried about, because when you read and you create those worlds in your head, which podcasts can do, and we're all different. That's the main thing to say. We're all different. How we respond to different things. For people who can't get into reading, podcasts might be ideal for them, or audio books, that kind of thing. But for me personally, when I read, I like to get into, I like that world building you do in your imagination, and going on that experience with your characters and wondering what's going to happen next. And it feels like you're more engaged. I feel like I'm more engaged when I'm reading rather than listening. As I said, we're all different. So why? I made a couple of notes, of course. I think the reason why, some of the reasons, these are some of the reasons I think why podcasts kind of overwhelm me a bit. And it's in my nature to, if I like something, just do it too much and then pull back. So it's a natural cycle for me. When you're listening to a podcast, there's no real physical effort involved. You don't have to hold a book. You don't have to open your eyes. You can just lie down anywhere and listen. And it's easy and convenient. And the human voice, hearing another human voice is, there's a certain comfort or intimacy about that, which I think is warming to us. So that's understandable. And, we live in a fast-paced world. Having someone telling you all about things, listening to a history podcast about, I don't know, Carthage or something, I'm going to get a lot more quickly than if I'd picked up a big history book and tried to read it back to front, and I'd be engaged more with the podcast. It's true. Although I have read some history books, and the bottom line is, if you're interested, you're interested, whether it's a book or a podcast or anything. So, and I think for me, and probably others, the history, like I said, I'm into history podcasts. The ones I listen to, they'd often be series, like a major event, like the I mentioned Carthage, so the Punic Wars. They might do 10 episodes, so you're kind of locked in for 10 weeks of listening to how things progressed. And a bit like an audio book, once you start, if you get locked in, you kind of got to listen to it all to see what happens. So that kind of locks you in for a certain period of time, which again, if you get into it, diminishes your desire for picking up a book or listening to more music or something. And something just popped into my head is that what I've discovered, and I thought the opposite might happen when I listen to history podcasts, is that it feels to me like history is still such an unexplored area, especially ancient history, because the history is often recorded as you've all heard that saying, by the winners, and it's true. So there's so much we don't know. So I don't think there's such a thing as a definitive history of anything. And I mentioned Carthage before, and I've read a book or two on Carthage and listened to podcasts from renowned historians, and if I remember correctly, the vast majority of sources for that were written by Romans. And the Romans were no friends of the Carthaginians. So, you've got to take it all with a bit of a pinch of salt. So, and I think that applies especially in ancient history, but also in modern history. The winners try and rewrite the history to suit themselves. And I thought, as I said, listening to all this history, ancient and modern, might make me believe more in the history we're told, but kind of had the opposite effect. I don't know, maybe I need to read more and listen more, but it seems like we're largely getting one side of the equation. Anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Take a break. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, and I think as a filmmaker, I mean, you can do this with podcasts and audiobooks as well. But I find personally that my imagination is sparked much more by reading. And maybe it's because of that, maybe part of it is that physical book and having to read and get into it invests you more. I don't know, but I find I'm more creative. The images I create in my head when I read are more interesting and more diverse and more colourful and more options come into my head than when I'm listening to a podcast. So for me personally, it's more creative, if that makes sense. And I guess overall it's just, this is me. This is me, and how things work for you may be completely different. but I'm looking forward to reading more and getting in more. And I've even it's a new word. I've even been avoiding reading some scripts. So I have my own scripts, which is weird. So something's the podcast obsession has triggered something in me, and I need to rewind a bit. What else? Oh, I got contacted about another indie film, which is great. Significant role, hopefully, so keep everything crossed. I won't know any more for another month or two, so hopefully things will progress well. I can't say much, but really interesting role, the sort of role that suits me down to the ground, to be honest. And one thing I will say is it's filming in Italy. Well, I'm pretty sure it's filming in Italy. And I love going to Italy. I love filming in Italy. And someone asked me why a couple of months ago when I was talking about work. And I started answering it, but the truth is, and I find this more and more as you get older, as I get older anyway, that if you feel something, don't question it. If it feels good, don't question it, you know. I love going to Italy. I just feel so comfortable there and with the Italian people. And I love working with the Italian crews. And it just feels good to me. So I don't overanalyze it. I just accept it and enjoy it. I have the same feeling in Eastern Europe. I've spent a bit of time in Romania. I've spent a bit of time in Bulgaria. And those places feel comfortable too. And I've mentioned before that I've done some filming in Cluj, and I feel Cluj-Napoca in northwest Romania, and I felt very comfortable there. So if you feel comfortable in places, you don't have to explain it or justify it or anything. It just, if it feels good, it feels good. Thanks for watching. I hope to have some more news on the 2 short films, maybe next week or the week after. I figured it was better to not force, you know, weekly videos when things in the indie world can move very slowly. So it's better to keep it real, you know. So hopefully next week or maybe the week after, I'll have some more news about that. Thanks for watching. You can watch Kin Spirits for free on Tubi, and I hope to see you in the next one.